This week, I've got Knives Out, which is a whodunit from writer-director Rian Johnson, who you may know from Brick, Looper, and a little movie called Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And it is very much a whodunit in the genre of, an Agatha Christie, Poirot film/novel. It's inspired by Sleuth. It's inspired by Gosford Park. I don't think it looks to necessarily reinvent the whodunit genre, and I will say there's also kind of a thriller element to it, but it does a modern, excellent take on it with a bunch of great actors. So it's worth watching for that alone. It's got Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc, who is our Poirot-esque character, and he's got kind of a Colonel Sanders Kentucky accent going on, which is a little absurd seeing out of Daniel Craig, who I think are used to associating with this very posh, polished James Bond character. It's a little scenery chewing at times, but that's also kind of the point of these characters, right? Like Poirot and his absurd mustache, there is an exaggeration to them. So I think it's probably a fun role for him to take. It's very different from, James Bond. And the whole film centers around the Thromby dynasty, empire, whatever you want to call it, whose patriarch is Christopher Plummer, who is amazing, as always. And he's got a bunch of adult children who are fighting. Jamie Lee Curtis plays his daughter. Michael Shannon plays his son. Don Johnson plays Jamie Lee Curtis's husband. Their son is Chris Evans. See, this is going to it's going to start to get confusing, but if you see the movie, it'll explain this. Toni Collette plays the ex of one of Christopher Plummer's children. Katherine Langford plays her daughter. And then, you've got a couple other periphery characters. You've got LaKeith Stanfield as a police officer brought in to investigate a crime because, yes, of course, there has to be a crime in a whodunit. And you've got folks like Riki Lindhomeand and Frank Oz in supporting roles. And then you've got Ana de Armas, who really cares a lot in this movie. She is the nurse to Christopher Plummer's character. She was in Blade Runner 2049. Apparently she was in Yesterday. I don't remember that part. I don't remember her roles in those a ton, my bad. But I think she is one of the standout performances in this, in part because she is given a lot of screen time and her role is very integral. So as I said, it does not reinvent the genre of the whodunit. I found parts of it very predictable, but I also have seen a lot of whodunits and might not be the surprised audience. I'm more the tracking all the clues, trying to figure it out type. And so in that sense, if you are a huge fan of the genre, I don't think it's going to necessarily shock you in any way. But I think the performances are what carry a lot of the film. It is coming out around Thanksgiving. It is a dysfunctional family. I think it very accurately captures the dysfunction and love that comes with being in close quarters with your family. In this case, it's because a murder has been committed. And that is in the trailers. I'm not really spoiling anything. Again, a crime has to be committed for a whodunit. Or does it? No. So, yes, I think it's worth seeing. I think it's fun. There are actually the most interesting part to me, and a film takes however long to produce and make, and there's a lot of stuff about, immigration issues in this because of Ana de Armas' character. There are a lot of good but terrible jokes that I'm I could see this at any Thanksgiving table this, year. Oh, she's from Venezuela, Colombia, whatever. Nobody can get it right. There's a lot of just microaggressions that are very well captured in this. I don't think it's about a rich family, right? And it doesn't spare them. It doesn't ask us to pity them per se, but it does. You have to sympathize with these characters who you see on screen. So it's an interesting balance in that sense. Overall, if you're looking for an escape this weekend, I think it's totally worth seeing. I think it's fun. I think go see it before it gets spoiled is also my suggestion. It's nothing revolutionary, but it's certainly a well-executed and acted and written, composed piece of whodunit theater. So I think it's definitely worth seeing. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5.